We kick off this episode of Stargate SG-1 with someone besides SG-1. This setup is an exploratory group for mining operations. Naquita, that mineral the Gould have such a hard-on for. Turns out we need a lot of it too, to make our interstellar spaceships, and that's a pretty high-demand resource. Major Lorne has bad news about the concentrations. They might as well be trying to pan the stuff like a grizzled prospector. So it's good news that Nerdy Guy has a lead on a more concentrated region. Well, a guy out doing some surveys suspects he might not be alone out here, and the green filter tells us, yeah, he's definitely not alone. I like how he starts crying out only after he loses his hat, like, damn it, that comes out of my paycheck. After the titles, O'Neill, Daniel, and Teal'c have arrived to lead the search for Ritter, the missing guy. Right now, the assumption being that he's just lost. Compasses don't work right here, and radios aren't reliable. What gets Daniel's attention, though, is that there's some artifacts here.
They've been moved. Well, they were in the way.
That's a silly question. O'Neill's question is more pertinent to the crisis. Is it normal for someone to wander off from where they've set all this crap up, if I may be technical? Well, Daniel has found something interesting amongst his own pile of crap. There's mining equipment here, of course, and a Gould torture device, so we can guess who used to mine the place. I mean, well, not personally. You don't invent torture sticks unless you outsource your manual labor. But the big news among all this pile of crap is the yoke. As in the wooden thing on your shoulders, not the one inside an egg. Calling Jack over to show him your egg would not tell him you were on top of things. No, the point about the yoke is that it's too large for a human, but too small for a domesticated animal. That means more than likely, Unas. Those aliens like the one in Thor's hammer when they got trapped by the trap. So we have a prime suspect for our disappearance. Lucky us. Colonel Edwards is skeptical and makes clear the Pentagon is practically using one of those torture sticks on him to get some Naquita, so he is not inclined to halt based on a hunk of wood. And if there are Unas here, then we should bring in some troops to make sure these guys behave themselves. Well, they have a similar message for us. Totems or something set up to let others know to stay away, including one that features Ritter's corpse. You can understand the Unas confusion there. There's a bunch of skeletons with Jafar armor around, so the Unas would have presumed that this guy is just a Jafar wearing something different. But Edwards isn't really in a cultural anthropology kind of mood. He intends to deal with the murder of one of his people.
Well, you may have unknowingly provoked them.
It's not that you're wrong, Daniel. It's just that you need to read the room, metaphorically, to figure out how to phrase that. I mean, you probably wouldn't be so quick to say it that way if the situation was reversed. If they'd known the Unas were here and shot one of them and hung up the body as a warning to stay away from their camp, I don't think you'd be standing there saying, well, they did provoke you. I know they were on this planet first. Point being, you're phrasing it like Ritter was poking a grizzly bear with a short stick and got walloped for it. And that's not going to win over people who saw their friend turned into a scarecrow for using a theodolite in the wrong place. So they're going to go out and make our unhappiness known, and it's actually fairly even. We have strong projectiles and they have only hand-to-hand weaponry, but they are tough bastards, so many of them can live long enough to get into the ass-beating range. O'Neill gets tossed so hard he breaks his arm, but Daniel stops the Unas from trying to finish him off by yelling in the Unas language. They leave, and while Edwards wants to pursue, O'Neill draws the line. Look, this may be Edwards' command, but carrying out a large-scale campaign against an enemy that has done serious damage and withdrawn into unknown territory, no, that's not something you leave to a guy whose primary job is finding valuable rocks. Back at the SGC, O'Neill is treated. Carter swings by to assure us she's still here, and is shot from the waist up to assure us that she's not sitting this one out because the actress is pregnant. But the concern is Jack sitting this one out. But the Pentagon is weighing in on what happens next. The Prometheus got stranded in a prior episode, so they'd very much like to get to work on the next battle cruiser. It's the way they frame it. A lot of things in this episode are, why are you framing it that way? They frame it like, oh, the Prometheus is stuck, so we better get started on the next cruiser ASAP. When it's not going to be much of a short-term solution for this because, well, a regular ship that just has to float in the water and not survive space combat, you're probably looking at, for a ship that size, about 2 years to build. The correct framing is that the state that the Prometheus is in indicates the potential for a gap in America's defenses, and so we need to work on a long-term solution to that, and we need to get started on that solution as soon as possible. Mind you, it does sound a bit ridiculous to say the Air Force can't get by on only one interstellar warship, not if it plans to protect America from her enemies. Daniel steps in to note that the UNAS are not going to be happy if we encroach on their territory again, and I've since become even less sympathetic on this because I took a break for a walk and a bird repeatedly attacked the top of my head. I will not accept I was encroaching by walking on a sidewalk that my taxes paid for. But while my problem can be solved only with a tennis racket, Daniel believes the UNAS can be negotiated with if we absolutely can't mine anywhere else. And Chaka, an UNAS Daniel had befriended on another planet, can serve as a liaison to work something out. The Pentagon rep agrees to try, but if it fails, then the UNAS will be forcibly relocated. Yeah, because that ended so well for Custer. There's tension between Chaka and Edwards, which doesn't bode well if your chief negotiator might kill the mission commander, but he seems to know what he's doing. They separate from the group to be as non-threatening as possible and make a fire to wait for a representative to come. Eventually, the rep shows up with his whole posse. These talks are off to a great start. Chaka and Daniel adopt a submissive posture, and then the exchange of gifts begins, as all treaties brokered by Father Christmas are. They get across that we want to work something out so that we all win, only it doesn't sound like we're all going to win. Daniel returns to say the mine is sacred to the UNAS. It's where their forebears were worked to death, and since on Earth sacred burial grounds are protected, we have to honor that, even if they were aggressive and pecked at your scalp for no reason. With the imminent threat of forced relocation, Daniel goes back to try again, saying they will trade food for ore, because they have a common enemy in the Gould. The nuances of the agreement are a bit difficult. Essentially, we need the rocks to make weapons to fight the bad guys. They can understand that. An actual caveman could understand that. Which actually, now that I think on it, Daniel later says the UNAS live in caves, so that works. There's a problem, though, or rather several problems, all trying to get through the door at once like the Three Stooges. Let's try to sort them out. The representative seems skeptical, so Daniel makes clear we need to work this out, or the other humans are going to come and force them out. The dude begs to differ, that if anyone tries to force them to do anything, the UNAS are going to unite and kick our asses. We could provoke a massive unified response that, well, my Custer reference earlier should make that point clear, shouldn't it? That's when... Yeah, that's going to set back negotiations a bit. This guy wasn't attacking, he was coming to collect his necklace that he dropped during the earlier confrontation.
I didn't know.
No need to apologize.
Because they wouldn't listen anyway. The one thing Daniel doesn't say is, they may have unknowingly provoked you. Sorry, I'm still annoyed. Well, the shooting has definitely gotten the UNAS attention, and Edwards doesn't get that they're about to get overrun. They show up, and there have to be at least hundreds of them. So unless Edwards has brought the entire German defensive line at the Somme to this mining outpost, they are going to get pulverized. The leader comes down.
Don't do anything stupid.
Hey, don't tell me what to do. Daniel tries to calm this down, but the fact that while they negotiated peace, one of his people was killed pisses him off as much as Edwards was pissed off about Ritter. The UNAS weren't trying to negotiate a treaty at the time, though, true. And again, Edwards didn't use the body of that guy for arts and crafts. Well, we should remember.
Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who.
So Daniel says to get on the ground and be submissive. That's how it works with the UNAS, and in prison from what I hear. Daniel offers the lighter as an indication he wishes to negotiate, and a deal is worked out. Stop trespassing on their sacred ground, FFS, and the UNAS will work the mines for them to fight the Gould. So everything is worked out, and we can stop killing each other, and that at least is something we all have in common. Well, most of us anyway. Gotta feel sorry for Teal'c this week. The entire mission has been his ass in a sling for our benefit. Some days we are pretty crappy friends to have. Enemy Mine gets a stamp of recommended. Michael Rooker gives a fine guest performance, but the real treat is seeing them resolve things diplomatically, despite the hiccups. I shouldn't have to say it, but I'll say it anyway. I obviously am not in favor of sweeping in like we own the place and presuming that we can force the Unas out to serve our interests. It's the kind of imperialism we should be standing against. And as I noted, the Prometheus doesn't make it an imminent problem that justifies extreme measures. I'm only noting things spiraled, and a lot of this was down to genuine mistakes. Ritter wasn't in marked Unas territory. His killing is no more justified than that of the guy coming back for his necklace. Mistakes were made on both sides as far as the violence goes. There's no mistake when it comes to the military presumption that they were right to forcibly relocate a people. That was being done with intent. Might makes right is the kind of thing the good guys should stand against, not be a tool to further our agenda. Which is why I'm pleased about how we see Daniel trying to work out a treaty with them, and that ultimately, despite mistakes, both sides are able to, in the end, come to an agreement. It's not an easy thing to do with an hour drama, and you certainly can't do it regularly. And I think the presence of Chaka helps to sell the plausibility of it, that his presence is a vouching that Daniel wants to act in good faith. After all, the Unas, as beings previously used as hosts for Gould, would understand the idea that the humans are likewise sometimes used against their will. Using the common enemy to see why we need to not make enemies of each other helps to also show why they would be willing to give Daniel a fair hearing. The fact they have methods for negotiation and that all the clans banded together shows this is something the Unas recognize as necessary for survival. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't note that Major Lorne here did well enough that the producers sent him off to Atlantis with Season 2. Became a common recurring character as Shepard's number 2 with Ford getting shipped off to Crazyland. But yeah, I generally like this episode and how it's not force or technology or even science that solves it, but finding common ground through dialogue. I am told this was only done because Daniel was back, and if so, they put him to good use with this.